on Purim, I played you. I
Jerry,
pretended to be a doctor with a tie on. It's the first time I had a tie on since 2017.
Well, you know the old saying, every day is Purim.
Hey, Jerry and Eileen, for the first time ever, I beat you guys here. Don't ask why. How's Florida?
look outside. Can you
Yeah,
see?
it's great.
Oh my gosh. Oh, now I see the color of the
It's our
sky.
last
But
day
we're
on
done.
our way home.
Oh,
Coming home.
It's gorgeous in Florida today. Gorgeous.
It's been gorgeous
It
all
is,
month.
it is.
Where are you, Jerry?
Miami Beach.
And where are you?
Boca.
We're in Boca.
So
Boca West.
yeah, what's the grocery store we stopped at in Boca? The fabulous
The
You stop at
Grove.
Glick's, at Doris's, at the Boys.
Grove.
The Grove.
The Grove. Okay.
Unbelievable.
My mom lived in Boca, and I have a lot of family all over Florida.
My mom and daddy lived in Fort Lauderdale.
As did mine.
But every building has a minion. It's amazing.
so many Jews.
And usually
Yeah.
more than one because they don't agree.
Well, you have to have the menu you go to and
Brooklyn.
the menu you don't go to. So. Even in Miami. Morning, Rosara. Morning, Morris. Hi, Stan and Judy. Oh, they can't hear me yet.
Stan and Judy.
Happy birthday, Stan.
Ah, very good.
Oh, thank you.
Happy anniversary to you.
You got out of bringing us a bottle of scotch, didn't you?
I have a new bottle. You can join me in it.
We'll hold you to it when we come back.
Oh, good.
And
One track mind.
happy birthday.
Oh, wait
Question
a
for-
minute, real quickly. I have something else to show you. So hang on.
9:15. Go, go, go.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
we
a
got
start.
9:15. I'm sorry we missed that.
Should we wait for him? Should we not wait for him?
Never mind. Yeah, it's his birthday.
Give him special dispensation.
Give him a break.
Ooh, what is this?
That's
Oh,
the
wow.
that's
What
that's
is it?
it's a ticket from the first New York Mets home game, 1962 in the Polo Grounds. And then it's pictures of the starting lineup on their first game, which was played in St. Louis. They didn't go home till a while ago. And then this too.
That's a,
Nice.
Up in New Jersey, my brother said anybody who's playing the Braves. So
Nice.
It's 9:16.
All right, now we're starting. Shabbat shalom. Welcome, everybody. Good morning.
Morning.
Shabbat shalom.
Ay, 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 ay. 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 Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. So let's turn to page 103 for Birkot HaShachar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sech v'bina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשני בעצמו. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשני בת חורי. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשני ישראל. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, mabi sharumi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asuri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamichin mitzadei kaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, nasali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten le'ayiv koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, amavir shina me'inai, utnuma me'afapai. Utnenu hayom v'chol yom licheinu chesed ol rachamim, beinecha beinei kol ro'enu v'tigmalenu chesedim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai, gomel chesedim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Le'olam yehi adam yirei shamayim v'seter v'galui. Ma anachnu ma chayenu ma chasdenu, ma tzidkenu ma yishenu ma kochenu ma gevurotenu. V'chachamim kivli madan. לפיכך אנחנו חייבים להודות לך. אשרינו, אשרינו, מה תוכחנו, ומה נעים נעים גורלנו, ומה יפה ירושתנו. אשרי אנחנו שמשכימים ומרהיבים ערב הבוקר, ואומרים פעמיים בכל יום, שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. קדש את שמך, מקדש שמך, וקדש את שמך בעולמך, ובישועתך תרים ותגביה קרננו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש את שמך ברבים. Turn to page 107 for the bracha for Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Read in English, the bottom of the left side of 107. These are the deeds that yield immediate fruit and continue to yield fruit in time to come. Honoring parents, performing deeds of kindness and love, attending the house of study morning and evening, providing hospitality, visiting the sick, helping the needy bride, attending the dead, probing the meaning of prayer, making peace between one person and another and between partners. And the study of Torah is the most basic of them all. Turn to 110 and then into Kaddish Rabbanan. Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'le'avotenu v'imotenu, shetitein chalkenu b'toratecha v'nihiyah mitamidav shel Aharon HaKohen, ohev shalom v'rodev shalom, ohev et habriot u'mekarban laTorah. Kaddish Rabbanan, page 111. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'amad divrach hirutei v'yamlich machlutei v'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayei decho beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrama v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, da'miran b'yama v'imru, amen. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan, v'al tamidehon, v'al kol tamidehon, v'al kol man de'oskin be'oreita, di v'atra hadin v'di v'chol atar v'atar, yehei lohon ochon, shlama rabba, china v'chista v'rachamin, v'chayin arichin, Umizona revicha, ufor kana min kodam avuhon di vishmaya v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Ose shalom v'imromav, hu berachamav ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Next page, 112, for the song for Shabbat. Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh, Shabo Hayalavim Omrim, Beveit HaMikdash, Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat. Od Yinuvun Meseva Dishenim Baranim Yiyu, Lagid Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri, Velo Avlahar Tabo. Page 120. Mizmor Shir, Chanukat HaBayit LeDavid. 8 lines up from the bottom with Elecha. Elecha Adonai Akra V'yel Adonai et Hanan. Elecha Adonai Akra V'yel Adonai et Hanan. Shema Adonai v'choneni, Adonai hayeh ozer li. Shema Adonai v'choneni, Adonai hayeh ozer li. Hafachta misperi lemacholi, pitachta sakivtas reidi simcha, leman yizmercha kavod velo yidom, Adonai Elohai leolam otarka. Turn to Mourner's Kaddish on page 121, and you're welcome to unmute so we can hear your voices in Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Uzman Korean root alone.
Amen. Yehesh
Mayo. Ador v'taman v'seh. Ador v'talei alel shmei kusel urei.
Va'eva mikol
Yes, Ishmael, Kaye, Aleinu, Yakol Yisrael, Rosh Shalom Ra, Puya, Aleinu, Yakol Yisrael, Himru, Amen.
Amen. Amen. Chapter 122. Baruch Shamar. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Baruch she'amar v'haya olam. Baruch hu, Baruch Oseh Bereshit, Baruch Omer V'Yoseh, Baruch Gozer U'Mikayem, Baruch Mirachem Al Haaretz, Baruch Mirachem Al Habriot, Baruch Mishalem Sacharto Lireya, Baruch Aliyah V'Kayam Lanetzach, Baruch Podeh Umatzil. Ay, ay, ay. Baruch hu. Ay, 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 ay. Baruch Shemo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yachid chei olamim melech meshubach umfarad et shemo hagadol. Baruch atah Adonai melech mulal batishbachot. Oh, Dulad Adonai kiru vishmo, udiu v'hamim alilotav, shiru lo, zamru lo, sichu b'chol nifleotav, hitalelu b'shem kodsho, hitalelu b'shem kodsho. Shiru lo, zamru lo, sichu b'chol nifleotav. I'm going to turn over to page 132 for Psalm 136. walked over to the shul this morning, and the internet was out, which happens periodically, but you know, we just roll with the punches. And this is relatively low punch because it's very easy to just get back home and lead from here. But I don't know, it just sparked something in my mind about spontaneity. I think so much of our lives right now sort of gotten into a sort of groove, and we know more or less what each day is going to look like, which can be a real comfort. And I don't know, and I think this may be different for different people, but I find one of the things that I am missing right now is a sense of spontaneity, a sense of being able to just make a decision on the fly and have it be possible to do it without a whole lot of pre-planning. And so I find, you know, even though there's moments of disruption or, okay, something's happened that I, you know, didn't plan for, there's sort of like a, ooh, something different. Okay, I can roll with this, especially when it's like relatively low grade disruption. And I think that's true. I mean, it's one of those things that's true in real life and also very true in prayer life, where you get into a groove, you get into like, okay, I know what's going to happen. And then that groove becomes really worn very, very deep. And it is so easy for that comfort and that habit to become just the rote thing, just the sort of autopilot thing. And there's always a mixture of groove, of keva, of fixedness, and of kavanah, of intention, and I'll say the place for spontaneity, the place for newness that has to come in too, whether that's a new tune, whether that's a psalm that we haven't sung in a while, or especially whether that is a little insight or connection that hasn't existed before. And the thing about spontaneity is you can't plan for it. You can try to create an architecture where something is new, but it involves, I think, being responsive to the world around you and not seeing the thing that happened that you didn't plan for as the disruption to your carefully intentioned plans, but how do I actually bring that in? How do I make that part of my experience, and then learn how to adapt around it? I think that's one of the challenges and the opportunities of our spiritual life. So, so wherever that lands for you, if that resonates, where that resonates, see if you can look for a place to weave some spontaneity in, to be receptive to what's happening in your environment, in your world, and bring it in to your prayer this morning. So you're invited to rise, if you'd like, with me on page 132. Dula Dna Kitov, Gileolam Chasto. Duli Elohei Elohim, Gileolam Chasto. Dula Dna Adonim, Gileolam Chasto. Leoseni Plaud, Gidolot Levado, Gileolam Chasto. Leosei Hashamayim Bipuna, Gileolam Chasto. Lerokaret Al Hamayim, Gileolam Chasto. Leosei Orim Gidolim, Gileolam Chasto. Et Hashemesh lememshelet bayom, Gileolam Chasto. Et hayareach v'kochavim lememshelot balayla, Gileolam Chasto. Lemakeh Mitzrayim b'choreihem, Gileolam Chasto. Vayotze Yisrael mitochem, כי לעולם חסדו, ביד חזקה בזרוע נטויה, כי לעולם חסדו, לגוזר ים סוף לגזרים, כי לעולם חסדו, והעביר ישראל בתוכו, כי לעולם חסדו, וניער פרעה וחילו בים סוף, כי לעולם חסדו, למוליך עמו במדבר, כי לעולם חסדו, למכה מלכים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו, ויהרוג מלכים אדירים, כי לעולם חסדו, לסיחון מלך האמורי, כי לעולם חסדו, וליהוג מלך הבשן, כי לעולם חסדו, ונתן ארצם לנחלה, כי לעולם חסדו, נחלה לישראל עבדו, כי לעולם חסדו, שבשפלנו זכר לנו, כי לעולם חסדו, ויפרקנו מצערנו, כי לעולם חסדו, נותן לחם לכל בשר, כי לעולם חסדו, הודו לי אל השמיים, כי לעולם חסדו. Turn to 136. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יעללו חסלה, אשרי עם שככה לו, אשרי עם שאדוני אלוהיו. תהילה לדוד, ארומים לך אלוהי המלך, בברכה שמך לעולם ועד. בכל יום אברכך, בהללה שמך לעולם ועד. גדול אדוני ונפלא מאוד, ולי גדולתו אין חקר. דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה. הללויה, הללי נשי את אדוני. אדוני שומר את גרים יתום וימנה יודע בדרך רשעים יעבד. ימלוך אדוני לעולם מלך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. הללויה כי טוב זמרה אלוהינו. מגיד דבריו ליעקב, חוקיו ומשפטיו לישראל. לא עשה כן לכל גוי ומשפטים בידעום. הללויה. הללויה, הללו את אדוני מן השמיים. וירם קרן לעמוד הלל לכל חסידיו. לבני ישראל עם קרובו, הללויה. הללויה, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש. לאסור מלכיהם בזיקים ונכבדיהם לחבלי ברזל, לעשות במשפט כתוב, הדר הוא לכל חסידיו, הללויה. Hallelu, 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 hallelujah, 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 el bekocho. Hallelujah, 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 birkia uzo. Hallelujah, vikurotav. Hallelujah, kirov godlo. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, benevel vechinor. Hallelujah, 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 betovu machol. Hallelujah, 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 beminim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, betziltzalei shama. Hallelujah, betziltzalei troah. Kol anshama. Aliyah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol anshama Aliyah, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen. Uvaruch shem kvodo leolam, v'yamalei kvodo et kol haaretz, amen ve'amen. Page 142. Vayevarech David Adonai l'nei kol hakahal vayomer David. Atahu Adonai ha'Elohim asher bacharta be'Avram v'hotzeito me'or kasdim v'samta shemo Avraham u'matata et levavo ne'eman lefanecha v'charoti mohabit. V'hayam bakata lifnehem v'yaru b'toch hayam v'yabasha v'ad rodfeihem hishlachta b'mtzlot kamo efen v'mayim azim v'yosh Adonai b'yom hahu et Yisrael mi'en Mitzrayim v'yar Yisrael et Mitzrayim midas v'hayam. V'yar Yisrael et hayat hagadola asher asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim Vayuram et Adonai, Yaminu b'Adonai, u'Moshe avdo. As yashir Moshe b'nei Yisrael, et hashira hazot l'Adonai v'amru le'mo. Uzi v'zimrat yah, vayehi Lilishua Uzi Bezimrat Yah Vayehi Lilishua Uzi Bezimrat Yah Vayehi Lilishua Uzi Bezimrat Yah Vayehi Lilishua. Adonai Imloch Leolam Vaed. Vatikach Miriam Anviachot Aaron et hatov biada Vatetzahena kol hanashim acharaha betupim uvmecholot V'tan lahem Miriam shiru l'Adonai kigoga Susruch bo ramavayar Ki l'Adonai melecham Shabbat goyim V'alu Moshe bar Zion lishpot et ha'esav V'ayta l'Adonai hamlucha V'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz V'yom hahu Adonai echad U'shmo echad Nishmat kol chai Tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu
נשמע חי, תברך את שמך אדוני אלוהינו.
Were our mouths filled with song as the sea, our tongues to sing endlessly like countless waves, our lips to offer limitless praise like the sky, our eyes to shine like the sun and the moon, our arms to spread heavenward like eagle's wings, and our feet as swift as deer, we would still be unable to praise you. Kol atzmotai tomarna Adonai michamocha Matziloni mechazak mimenu v'ani v'avion mikoslo Nid melech u'mishkalech u'miyaroch lech Ha'el hagadol hagibor v'hanora El Elyon konei shamayim v'aretz נהללך נשבחך נפארך נברך את שם קודשך כאמור לדוד ברכי נשי את אדוני וכל קרבי את שם קודשו האל בתעצומות עוזך הגדול בכבוד שמך הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו
וכתוב עלינו צדיקים באדוני לישרים נאווה תהילה בפי ישרים תתהלל ובדברי צדיקים תתברך ובלשון חסידים תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תקדש ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל
ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל.
שכן חובת כל יצרים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו לאבותינו ואמותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר לרומם להדר לברך להלל קלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו.
הפך שמך לעד מלכנו.
האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים וארץ. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הגדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים.
אמן.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ביום תברכי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון וכערכו בית ישראל. בגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו. לעילם אין כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בהמה ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. הכל יודוך והכל ישבחוך והכל יאמרו אין קדוש כאדוני. הכל ירוממו הסלע יוצר הכל. האל הפותח בכל ים דלתות שערי מזרח. ובוקח אלוני רקיע מוציאך ממקומה. ולבנה ממכון שבטה ומאיר לעולם כולו. וליושביו שברא במידת הרחמים. אין קרקך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך מידה ומלך. אין קרקך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי עולם הבא. אפס בלתך גורלנו למות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה כולו, וטובו מלא עולם, דעת תבונה וסובבים אותו. המגע על חיות הקודש, ונדר בכבוד על המרכבות, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. להם זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נאה זיוום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים בהם הרצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמות עולה ברינה לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח אור ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה שבח נותנים לו קודש במרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש. ליל אשר שבת מכל המעשים. Turn to page 153. Davening on Zoom has made some parts of the prayer service kind of recede into the background for me and made other parts really come to the fore. And this section of the, it's called the Kedusha de Yotzer, the Kedusha of creation, the holiness of creation, that comes right after the Baruch Hu, is the part of the Shacharit service that imagines how the angels pray and almost, not just almost, invites us actually to imitate the angels in prayer. And so it says, just for that little, if you're with me in Lev Shalem, where that little red arrow is, it says, Kulam ahuvim, kulam berurim, kulam giburim. They are all beloved, they are all clear, they are all powerful and strong. And all of them are opening up their mouths in holiness, in purity to sing. And then later on down the page, it says, just like it's an instruction almost. It says, each of them, each of the angels is giving permission, reshut zelazeh, giving permission to one another to pray. And this happens in this kind of circle. The Midrashim imagine that the angels are standing in a circle, and that giving permission is that sort of chorus that goes back one voice to another voice. And so this is how we do this section of prayer. It's a call and response to one another. And I've been finding that, I mean, since we've been davening together on Zoom for, a year now, essentially, almost, those moments of hearing people's voices pipe through the Zoom, when you could almost convince yourself, maybe nobody is there. I see their faces, but maybe no one actually, maybe it's all a mirage. And then you hear Morris's voice saying, Uvmakalot rivavot, like, oh, there is someone there. And this here, and then when we get to the Kedusha, I find, for me, those are some of the holiest moments of prayer, those moments of, oh, we're not alone. We are not alone, even though if we could convince ourselves that we are all alone. So whenever you see those bold words in the Siddur, that's an invitation. That's just an invitation to unmute if you feel comfortable and just lend your voice in. And it's a paradox almost, but that adding of your own voice into the mix is giving permission to other people to add their voices in as well. So I'm just back where we began on that little top red arrow on page 153. Kulam ahuvim, kulam berurim, kulam giburim, v'chulam osim b'ma'avira ritzon konam, v'chulam potchim et pihem b'kedusha v'torah, b'shira v'zimra, u'mbarachim v'shabchim, v'farim u'maritzim, u'makdishim u'mamlichim, et shem ha'el ha'melech, ha'gadol ha'gibor v'norah, kadoshu. וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ונימה קדושה, כולם כאחד, עונים ואומרים ביראה.
Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh.
והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים.
Baruch Kabal Adonai Mimkamo.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ליל ברוך נמותיתנו. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית, כאמור לעושה אורים גדולים להיל עולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכרת בנורא. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצא
Amen.
Avatanu Adonai Eloheinu Ham Lagidol Avitera Hamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avur Avotenu Shebachu Becha Avinu Malkeinu Vatilamdem Chokei Chaim Kein Tichonenu Tlamdenu Avinu Ha'av Harachaman Hamarachem Rachem Aleinu V'tein b'libenu lehavin u'laskir lishmo Alil ma'od u'lelamed lishmor v'lasot U'kayam et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha b'ahava V'haherenu b'toratecha V'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha V'yachei levavenu V'yahava u'yira et shemecha V'lo nevosh le'olam ba'ed V'lo nevosh le'olam ba'ed Ki v'shem kodshecha hakadol v'yanora b'hatachnu Nagila v'nismecha Nagila v'nismecha v'shuatecha V'havienu l'shalom me'ar b'kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiut le'artzenu Ki alpo el Yeshuotata Ubanu b'charta Mikolam v'lashon V'keravtanu L'shimcha gadol Sela Be'emet Lehodo lecha U'yachercha b'yahava Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'amo Yisrael b'yahava
Amen.
Shema
Yisrael
Adonai
Eloheinu Adonai
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בידיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים ללכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלינו ולאבותינו ואמותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו ואמותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו ואמותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, הודינו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו, אתה הוא מעולם. Come together in the middle of page 158 for Mi Chamocha, and then go into the Amidah together in the following pages. And then you'll have some time to just take moments of silence for your own prayers, if that's using the words in the book or just sitting quietly or speaking whatever words your heart needs to speak this morning. Just use this time however you like. Tehilot le'elyon baruch u'mvorach Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael l'chanu shira b'simcha rabba v'amru chulam mi chamocha va'elim Adonai mi kamocha נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. שיר החדשה, שיר בחוגים, לשמחה שפתיים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Sur Yisrael, huma be'ezrat Yisrael, uvdei chinumecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzvat Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'lo avotenu b'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Goel Ibnei Bneihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Ufoked Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Abraham Ufokei Sarah. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayei Meitim Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Meitim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melech, Melech Mimit Umechayei, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neman Atah L'chayot Mitim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayei Hametim.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה על זה ואמר.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרב בימינו לעולם ותשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור לנצח נצחים. בינינו תרד מלכותך, כדבר המור בשיר עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך עלינו מפינו לימוש לעולם ועד, כי המלך קדוש וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Use shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. If you're still davening, take your time, go at your own pace. Turn to Kaddish Shalem, page 167. Yitkara v'yikara shemei Rabba, ve'amad yirachirte v'yamlich machlote b'chaychon v'yamechon, u'chaydocho beit Yisrael, v'galav isman kari v'meru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach, le'alam olam
Yitbarach.
Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitala shemei kodesha. Breathe. Leila min kol bechata b'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran b'yama v'yimeru.
Amen.
Tikapav slot ha'tzvon dako Yisrael kodam v'hon d'bishmaya v'yimeru.
Amen.
Yehi shlam rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'ko Yisrael v'yimeru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'ko Yisrael v'ko yoshvei tevel v'yimeru.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, Boker tov. So I mentioned to some of you who were here a little while ago that I went to the shul this morning and the internet was not functioning. So I'm back at home, but I managed to grab the small mini Sefer Torah before I left so I could lead us into the Torah service. So we'll turn to 168 and take the Torah out of the makeshift ark on my table. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut, kol olamim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai melech, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim hitiv avirtzonecha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki becha levad betachnu, melech el ram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Vayehi b'nso Aharon, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, ve'yafutzu oivecha, ve'yanusu nesanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udevar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Anavda de kuchaberichu, ve'anarachet, ve'lishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, Anai martush bechan, Yehi rava kodama, Detiv tachli bibi oraita, Vitashli mishalim delibi, Deliba decholamcha Yisrael, Vitavul chaim, Velishlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai,
Gadol Adonai Hiti, Unerubim Shemo Yachdav, Lecha Adonai Agedula, Ve'agevura, Ve'tiferet, Ve'anetzach Ve'hahod, Ki ho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki ho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Lecha Adonai הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש רוממו, רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו, והשתחוו, להרים רגליו קדוש הוא, רוממו, רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו, והשתחוו להר קודשו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. All right. So Shabbat Shalom again to everyone. Let me get it so I can see all of you again. Okay, good. All right. So this morning we are going to be reading and studying Parshat Tetzaveh, where one of the main characters of the entire Torah is finally introduced to us in their pivotal role, and this is the characters of the priests, the core functionaries, the core ritual leaders in the Mishkan and in the temple. And we learn about one aspect of them first, even before learning about what they do, we learn about what they wear, their garments, their bigdei kehuna, their priestly vestments. And so before we get into the Torah reading this morning, well, very first, I want to thank Myrna Rubel for envisioning the arc of this discussion this morning. And she's going to be taking us through some learning after we do the Torah reading, as is Peggy Friedman, some different aspects of the priesthood and ways that the priesthood is still sort of manifest with us today, even in an era without a Mishkan, without a temple. Although clearly this is an aspect of Jewish life that has changed significantly over time. But I wanted to give a little bit of introduction, like sort of a 30,000 foot, why do we have priests? What is their purpose according to the Torah? What are they supposed to be doing at all? And hopefully this will help to orient us a little bit to the nitty-gritty questions of their garments, because it's a little strange feels a little bit out of order that we get all of the specifics of their clothing before we even get why there are priests at all. So I want to share just some thoughts from Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, who I've mentioned him before. Yitz Greenberg, towering figure, still around. He's in his, I want to say in his early 90s now, still producing incredible Torah and wisdom for the Jewish world. He writes weekly Divrei Torah that go out through the Hadar Institute that are always just gems. But this week's in particular was really beautiful. And so I want to share a couple of highlights of how he understands the priesthood. And hopefully this will help us out. So he first says that in order to understand why we have priests at all, we have to jump all the way to the book of Leviticus, which makes sense. This is the Torat Kohanim, the Torah of the priests, and specifically to Parshat Emor. And he says, there we are told that the key concept that is associated with the priests is holiness. They shall be holy to their God. You shall sanctify him, that is the priest. He shall be holy to you, for I, the Lord who sanctifies you, am holy. So he says that being holy has to do with being more like God, whose very nature is holy. So we have to then ask the question, what does holiness actually mean? And I think this is one of those words, even in English, that is thrown around and used so much that it can become sapped of specific meaning. But here's Rabbi Greenberg's take. So he says, we learn in the Torah that the physical world and everything in it is created with purpose. He says, and this sentence, I just think we have to like really zoom in on. The purpose of creation is that humans are called to fill creation with life and to repair the world so that it will support life to the maximum in all of its dignity and value. That, according to the Torah, through his eyes, that is the purpose of being a human created on this planet, to fill the world, to produce life, and to uphold and make sure that life can be supported to the maximum. And then he goes on and he says that this material, physical world that is created is really only the surface of reality. It is like the tip of the iceberg. And the physical world that we perceive is, in actuality, kind of floating in a sea of spiritual matter, which he calls God. And this means that there are unseen depths and realms of existence that are just as real as the physical, visible, measurable surface. So he goes on and says, human beings cannot access God via physical channels. And moreover, people can live entirely on the surface physical level and never encounter God or the spiritual depths and live a fairly fulfilling life. And some of us might say, like, yeah, I mostly live my life in the physical realm. I'm not really thinking about deeper things. I'm not really probing my inner spiritual life. I'm just doing my life. And we probably know people for whom they're just going through, all right, day-to-day functions. But Rabbi Greenberg says, however, if people live that way, they are missing whole segments of reality. The Torah tells us to drill down to the depth dimension of life where we encounter God through intuition, through inner experience, and through relationship. So back to holiness. Here's his definition of holiness. That holiness is arrived at when one lives life in its fullest dimensions, when one experiences the physical and the spiritual in interaction with one another. I'm going to say that one more time. Holiness is arrived at when one lives life in its fullest dimensions, when one experiences the physical and the spiritual in interaction with each other. When I meet another person and interact casually, even if I treat them honestly and respectfully, I'm living properly. But when I deepen the exchange into a relationship, into caring and loving the other person, then I get to know them in depth as an image of God. I experience them not just as another person, but as a wondrous creature that is of infinite value, equal and unique. So you can just pause right there and see whatever moment perhaps in your own life comes to mind where you have felt that sense of this, the physical and the spiritual just coming into focus, and seeing those two dimensions of reality in interaction with one another. Maybe that was a particularly powerful conversation. Maybe that was witnessing the birth of a child or a grandchild. Maybe, maybe that was in nature. Maybe that was in a deep moment of learning with other people. That is what Rabbi Greenberg calls, that is holiness. So where did the priests go? Now the priests come back. Living in a state of holiness is what priesthood is all about. And he says, to anticipate the future and to model how to behave to get there, a section of the population is set aside or sanctified as priests. They are the ones who live life in its fullest dimensions, in this state of holiness. And here's how the structure works to support that. The environment around the priests, the tabernacle, the Mishkan, is structured so that there is no presence of human death permitted. Ethical integrity and genuine affection is standard operating procedure for the priests. They accept the task of living in this kind of setting and meeting its high standards all the time, and they accept more limitations on their behavior than the average person by striving for physical excellence and emotional and ethical perfection. And they essentially turn themselves into a conduit for channeling God's blessings with love, which are blessings of life and vitality, to the rest of the population who's not living in this sort of idealized kind of society. And Rabbi Greenberg says, to be a priest is in some way to live in a kind of artificial existence. It is not the real world. And the reason why they're able to maintain this flushness with life all the time is because they're not caught up with the day-to-day, muck and grime. Somebody else is cleaning up after them. Somebody else is earning the living. Their meals are provided. All of their needs are met for them. And so they can live in this altered kind of reality and have this kind of perception of holiness. But Rabbi Greenberg moves to say that the Torah wants us to know, right? And good point. They're not totally removed from society. They are removed in some way, but they're still married. They still have children, because this gets to this next point. While their genetic hierarchy, the priesthood exists through, existing in one family line, they're not seen as just a genetic hierarchy. They're supposed to be living examples of this kind of holiness. And in fact, the Torah, we learn later on in the book of Numbers, that the Torah gives other ways for normal people, non-priests, to kind of enter into this altered existence by becoming what's called a Nazirite, by taking on certain personal restrictions to be kind of a quasi priest. So all of that is just background for us, because the question that Myrna posed to me and that now I want to pose to you is to wonder, I think a lot of us are maybe, I'll just maybe speak for myself and say, uncomfortable with the idea of these sort of hierarchies or castes within our Jewish society, within the structure of our society. And we've basically, in our egalitarian communities, mostly done away with the system where the Kohanim, the priests, get the first Aliyah and the Leviim get the second Aliyah by default, which is really was a feature of Jewish life for a long time. But I want us to think about how how might establishing this kind of hierarchy or this system have aided in the Israelites' development as a people? What would have been helpful about having a person embodying holiness, set aside in this role of holiness that that helped us in our early days existing as a people? So we're going to pause after the Aliyot, and I would love, well, actually, you know what? I want to get like maybe some, no, sorry, I'm talking too much. We're going to go ahead and start reading Torah. Let that question marinate for you a little bit, and then we'll come back to it after the first Aliyah, and I'll hear your thoughts. So now, after all of those words from me, turn it over to Morris to lead us in.
For those of you who have the Etz Chaim, we are on page 503, and I'll call the first Aliyah. Ve'yazor ve'yagen ve'oshia lechol hachosim bo v'nomar Amen. Kol havu godel Eloheinu tnu chavod laTorah. Ya'amdu belabat tzipora ve'vulf Yosef ben Zvi le'aliyah rishona baruch natan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato ve'atem madbikim b'Adonai Elohechem hayim kulchem hayom.
Hi.
Jeff?
Morris, I don't have the book. We don't have the book. Can you please read for us?
Sure.
Thank you. You honor us.
Et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Vaed.
Baruch Adonai borach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim venatan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten
Torah.
Amen. V'ata tetzaveh b'nei Yisrael v'yichu elecha shemen zayit zakatit l'maor l'halot ner tamid ve'ohel moed michutz la'parochet asher ha'edut Ya'arov oto Aharon uvanav ne erevat boker lifnei Adonai kukat olam l'dorotam me'et b'nei Yisrael v'ata hakrei elecha et Haron achicha et banav oto V'tok b'nei Yisrael lechanoli Aharon Nadav Yahivehu Elazar v'Itamar b'nei Aharon V'asa b'gdei kodesh l'Aharon achicha l'kvod u'tiferet V'ata tidaber et kol chachmei lev Asher melitiv ruach chachma Ya'be'asu et bigdei Aharon lekadsho lechanoli Ve'ele habigadim asher yasu Koshen ve'efod u'me'il Uketonet tishbeit mitnefetz ve'avnei Ve'asu b'gdei kodesh V'aharon achicha u'avanav lechanoli Ve'hem yichu et hazahav Ve'et techelet ve'et ha'argaman Ve'et ha'alot hashani Ve'et hashem
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Thank you.
Yasher koach.
Thank you. Thank you, Shakar.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Shakar.
Rabbi, do you want me to call the next Aliyah first?
Yeah, go ahead and call the next Aliyah and then we'll discuss.
Okay. Ya'amod ta'amod et itbat Benyamin vebatya le'aliyah hashniya bechavod.
So first, I just want to say Yasher Kochachem to Bernice and Jeff for the first Aliyah. It's the yard site of Bernice's father coming up this week, and thank you for honoring him through this Aliyah. Thank you for being with us. So we just received the introduction to the priests and the general clothing that they're supposed to wear. So I want to just bring us back to this question. If you had any initial responses, what do you think is the function of having this kind of hierarchy in a growing new society?
It allows for order.
Right. So in a very unstable time, wandering time, having clear roles, clear delineation of who does what and who's in charge. I can imagine, very easily Israelites could have descended into anarchy. And there are moments, we look at Korach, when we get to Korach, like there's a lot of moments where, okay, who actually is in power, who's in charge here? So having that be like divinely ordained, very, very important for this. This society is quite fragile right now. Peggy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, by setting up the priests, you're making it a ruling or a group whose leaders have to discuss things, because there's the military leaders, Moses, and there's the religious leaders, the Kohanim. And so even though it seems strange to us, they have to discuss things. In the other communities, the king is the leader of the church, and it's not like that for us.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, well, for those of us who watch The Crown, like you watch that sort of, division of powers, and it seems like, the Crown is a really helpful example as like a hereditary line and, vestiges, but they do have not just a symbolic function, like can have power and can intervene, but their power is limited in certain ways. Yes, I'm going to just bring in, Gail said, models behaviors the society wants to emulate. Yes. Okay. So who are the people that we look to see, okay, how should everyone be behaving? It's not just the priests are supposed to be holy. Everyone is mamlechet kohanim. They're supposed to be a nation of priests. So they're your models. And Robin said, like Sue. Harvey.
So we have a group of slaves leaving Egypt, and they needed to help have order. Moses had done it in a secular sense by having, when his father-in-law told him to set up a hierarchical system for the secular world, it seems to me they would need a hierarchical system for the spiritual world, and this is where the role of the priest came in.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Anyone want to add to this? Anything that hasn't been said, or want to push back on it all and say, hey, like I would have imagined a different, a different system or a different setup?
Yeah, this is.
Who is that?
Hi, this is Cheryl.
Oh, yes, Cheryl.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, I'm viewing this as not something they're setting up, but something that's being recorded later as this is what happened. Mm-hmm. And it gives the value that's placed on spirituality, or the value that's placed on the priestly tribe, that it makes it into this document in such a strong way. That's not saying what our values will be, but it's recording what they were, or what we hoped they were.
Yes, more descriptive of a society, and there's vestiges of, okay, clearly they had a very outsized influence on society at the time. But you're saying not not necessarily advocating for this is how it should be for all time into the future. I saw, oh, Elaine, yeah.
I think that they, excuse me, there was an effort to create a community. And to create a community, you needed leadership that was visible to all the people. So if you mandate that people dress a certain way, it helps create a community. And that, I think that goes on today. When you were walking down the street and you see someone with a kippah, you feel a connection, even if you're not wearing a kippah. I think that those efforts to make us a community are seen in a lot of ways, and I think this is one of them.
Yes, yes. Just seeing if there's anyone else with their
I
hands
was just
up.
going to add that I think that we can assume that people are people and that we're similar in our day that to how people were in that day, and there's a fear of doing things wrong, and so having people who are, you know, designating people who do it the right way, especially when it comes to like interacting with God. Like we like our experts, and I think this is an indication of human nature. Of you know, we want to appoint people, or we believe these people have been by their nature appointed as the conduits to, or an intermediary, or the experts when it comes to spiritual matters. And so, very much so, it's nice to have experts. And maybe it's less dangerous too.
Right, the designated expert, like these, look to these. So just one final thought I'll add from the Talmud that will sort of link this up to the clothing in particular. I think there's a big question around the priests, which is, are they inherently holy through their birth and through their being? There's something in their blood or their physical substance that is holy, or I guess this is not an either or, but sort of a gradation. Is it the role that they are in, and that they could either choose to embody their holiness by their behavior and how they act or not? And so the Talmud is not the only voice on the subject, but it says that neither the Kohanim nor the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, was fit to minister unless they were wearing their priestly vestments. And so the quote from Tractate Zvachim says, while they were clothed in the priestly garments, they are clothed in the priesthood, but when they are not wearing the garments, the priesthood is not upon them, which is very interesting, that the outfit helped them to step in the role. And then what happens when they're not wearing, you know, just I think about the kippah example is such a good one. What happens when you are a frum Jew and you go out and you take off your kippah? Do you stop being a frum Jew? Are you able to just sort of pass now? Are you under different dispensation, laws, expectations? So just a question that is raised in my own mind. Okay, we'll keep this discussion going, but let's move on to the second Aliyah. Ooh, I like Sue's thought too.
So the second Aliyah can be found at the bottom of page 505, verse 6. Go ahead, Edith.
Baruch Adonai Habarah.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torto. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Be'atzuecha efod zahab techeles be'argaman tola shani ושש משר מה שחושב שתך את אפו חברו יגיה לו אשנקת סוטה וחובר לחשב עפודתו אשר עלה כמעשהו ממנו יגיה צהב תכלת וארגמן בתולעה שני ושל משל Belachakta eshete avnei shochem ufitakta alechem shemot bnei Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'zechenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yesher koach. Ta'amod Laila bat Yochanan David veShoshana Rivka le'aliyah hashlishit bechavod.
Before the third Aliyah, just say Yishar Kochach to Edith and to Willie. For the second Aliyah, Edith, you took this Aliyah in honor of the yard side of your father, and so may his memory be a blessing to you always, always. We also just read about the vest or the robe, the ephod that the priest wore of many colors, kind of harkens me back to Joseph's multicolored coat. And in particular, one of the features of this ephod is the stones that were on the priest's shoulders, that he had stones in two different places that had the names of the tribes of Israel on his shoulders and on the Choshen HaMishpat, which we're not going to be reading about today. But there's a beautiful teaching about the shoulder stones by a Hasidic commentator that says that they were on his shoulders like the way a parent carries their child on their shoulders to support them and to lift them up. And, imagining Aaron as sort of the proverbial parent of all of us and really, really carrying all of the tribes. Like little kids who, can't walk so straight yet and need that help and need that support. I thought that was lovely. In this next Aliyah, we're just going to speed through because I really want to get to Myrna and Peggy's comments at the end. This next Aliyah, we're going to be reading about the robe, and particularly one of my favorite features of the priest's garment, which are the pomegranates and bells that are adorning the hem of the robe. So we'll turn to the third Aliyah now.
So the third Aliyah, we're skipping a little bit. So the third Aliyah can be found on page 508 at the bottom, verse 31 that Susan's going to read. Lila? Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamrach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'asita et me'al ha'ephod kelil techelet v'hayafi rosho betocho tzafah yeh לפי צביב מעשה אורג, כפי תחרה יהיה לו לא יקרע, ועשית על שולב רימוני תכלת בארגמן ותולעת שני, על שולב סביב ופעמוני זהב בתוכם סביב. Amon Zahav Rimon, Amon Zahav Rimon, Al Shulei HaMe'il Saviv, V'haya Laharon Lesharet, V'nishma Kolo, Vivo El HaKodesh, Lifnei Adonai, Utzei Tov V'lo Yamu. You gotta go again.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natan b'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yesher koach. Ta'amod Rina bat Avram v'Sara le'aliyah harevi'it bechavod.
Real quick, just want to say happy birthday to Susan. Is today, right? Happy birthday and Yesher Koach.
Thank you. No,
Okay, Reina.
Baruch et Adonai Hamorah. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chavano mikol ha'amim v'natalano el torato. Baruch ata Adonai notei haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'asita si zahav tahor ufitate ala pitohem otam kodesh la'Adonai ve'asatam oto el piti tihelet ve'haya el hamisnafet el meul b'nei hamisnefet v'hieh ve'haya Matzah Aharon, Vanasa Haron, Et Aov Hakadeshim, Asher Hakadeshu B'nei Israel, Le'chol Matanot Hakadeshem, V'hayeh El Matzot, Tamid L'rason Lehem, Lifnei Adonai.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah edme v'hayi olam natan botakenu. Baruch ata Adonai notei haTorah.
Amen. V'yesher koach. Ta'amod Shoshana bat Pnina Shachana le'aliyah hamishit ve'chavod. The fifth aliyah will start on verse 39, which is on page 510.
But first I want to say Yisher Koach to Rena and Eduardo, and happy birthday to Rena. Yom Holedet Sameach.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this aliyah this morning. And the fifth aliyah is going to be our final aliyah. So before we recite that, I'm going to say a Misha Berach for Holim.
Well, 1 second, Alan. I think that Sandra will be interested in this.
Hold on. Okay. So Misha Berach is found on page 173, and invite you, when I pause, to share names of people that you are praying for healing this morning in the chat. Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah v'yivarach v'yirapeh et hacholim.
Thank you.
Gittel bat Risha bat Esther, Batia bat Helen, Lois Cohen, Owen Rosenberg, and Lawrence Moore.
Matzia ben Hadassah v'Avraham, Lou Parker, Natan ben Rebecca Beryl v'Daniel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimale Rachamim Alehem Lachzikam Ularapotam Vishlach Lehem Mehera Refuah Shlema Min Hashamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf V'tok Shar HaCholim V'chazek Et Yidei Haoskim B'tzorchehem Shabbat Hi Milizoku Refuah Krova Lavo Hashta Ubagala Rizman Kariv V'nomar Amen. Refuah Shlema.
Okay, Diane.
Okay. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chavanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vishibatsta hakaton et shesh, vasita mitznef et shesh, va'avnet ta'aseh ma'aseh rokem, v'livnei Aharon ta'aseh kutanot, vasita lahem avnetim, umikbaot ta'aseh lahem lichavod utifaret. V'hilbashta otam et Aharon achicha v'et banav ito, umashachta otam, umileta et yadam, v'kidashta otam v'chihanu li, ma'aseh lahem miknesei vad, lechasot besar erva, mimatnaim v'ad yerechaim yiyu. V'hayu el Aharon v'al banav bevoam el ohel moed. O v'gishtam el hamizbeach l'saret b'kodesh lo yisu avon v'metu chukat olam lo lizaro acharav.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chaye olam v'nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yesher koach.
Yesher koach, and happy birthday to Diane. So glad you could be with us this morning. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so this is really a selection, a kind of overview of the priest's clothing. Before we turn to Myrna to offer a next facet to our conversation, just wanted to see if anyone else had any particular thoughts about the particular, I mean, some of the clothing items are so strange. The bells and the pomegranates to me, really are like such a unique image. And the frontlet with the words that say Kadosh Ladonai, holy to the Lord, that is a frontlet from the priest's headgear. Anything anyone wants to share just about how these vestments are structured? Okay. With that, I will turn it over to Myrna for the next part.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So my interest in this topic kind of stems because I am a Cohen, and this is a divine ordained rules and regulations. And as the rabbi said before, bringing together the physical and the spiritual was part of the hierarchy or part of the role of the Cohen HaGadol and the Kohanim. So I want to just jump to somewhat modern times. My recollection of the Kohanim making the priestly blessings was rather dramatic in synagogue. Just imagine a very crowded place and all of a sudden a whole group of men walk out, wash their hands, take their shoes off, come back in. All of the people are told, at least I was told by my mother at the time, don't look, don't look. And we would watch these men, Kohanim, walk up to the bima, which is why in Yiddish, this was called duchening, although in Hebrew it is called nisiat kapayim, which meant the placing of your hands. And I know all of you know from Star Trek, the placing of the hands and what the symbol of the Kohanim was. There they were, up on the bima, talit over their heads, their hands in a certain position, and following the chazan, repeating the priestly blessings for the congregation. I could share that for me as a child, it was the drama moment, certainly much more interesting than the rabbi's sermon. And it gave the community, as all of you have suggested before, this feeling of we have a set of rules, we are a community, and these people are modeling the connection between God, what's written in the Torah, and us as a community. So my interest was, this has gone on for as long as we've been around. And I took a look and saw that, lo and behold, in 1979, an archaeological discovery took place. And those of you who have ever done Dig for a Day know that Dig for a Day gets very messy, but an archaeological expedition took place right near the Begin, which is now the Begin Center and the Scottish Church. A professor of archaeology who had no money took a group of kids with him actually to start digging. And by mistake, as most discoveries happen, by mistake, they hammered into a floor and discovered another whole layer. And this layer of stones and gems had two very interesting silver, I'm going to say little silver scrolls. The measurement, if you can imagine, was 10 centimeters long by 2.5 centimeters wide. Now, usually in a dig, you put all this stuff in a sifter and try to sift out, but this archaeologist, whose name was Gabriel Barkai, basically said, this looks really important. And so he called in the professionals. And the professionals came from the University of California, really, to take a look at that scroll. Everyone was afraid to touch the scroll. They were terrified that they would ruin whatever was in it. And 3 years later, it was actually Israelis who got together and figured out how to take out the scrolls and unroll them. And what they discovered was Birkat HaKohanim, the blessing of the Kohanim. Later on, they used imaging technology, and they discovered that this was the oldest biblical text that they could find. It is dated back to the first temple, or the 7th century BCE. They think that these were amulets, probably bracelets or armbands that were worn by the Kohanim. And so for me, this spoke, wow, this is the real stuff. What is the deal with Kohanim? And why have we, certainly the conservative and reform movement, have totally changed it, pretty much taken it out of the service? Because, as somebody said, values change or things change, thinking that the hierarchy was not going to promote equality. The question is, did we lose something? Should we still be looking at this? And Peggy is going to go even much more modern in terms of the whole quest of, what does it mean? Who are these Kohanim? We're still around, and we can be traced back to the 1st century. I just find that to be incredible.
All right. You want me to go on from
Peggy,
here?
you want to pick up?
Well, thank you for that introduction. Thank you, Rabbi Lauren, for your thoughtful discussion of the priests as an important link to God and the balance between the physical and the spiritual. Myrna, thank you for the warm reminiscence of Dukkening and the really cool stuff about archaeology. I'm here to talk about DNA. I asked for 3 hours, but Myrna told me I couldn't have that long. There's a lot to say about DNA, but you can't understand the study of DNA and the Kohanim without the background, without the math and the science. So today we're going to talk about the cold hard facts of DNA. Only they're not so cold. They're actually living, breathing human beings. They're not hard in the sense of concrete. They're still in flux. and they're definitely not facts yet. They're still working theories. First, some definitions. When I talk about DNA, I'm talking about genetic relationships. So when I say fathers and sons, parents and children, I'm speaking of the biological relationship. That's the way DNA is discussed. If you're interested in exploring your family history because you have other kinds of relationships, perhaps an adoptive or a step relationship or an advanced fertility technique relationship with your parents, please feel free to contact me. I think I just put my information in the chat. We genealogists call that exploring your family forest instead of simply climbing one tree. But today we're going to talk about genetics. So I have a little quiz, and I hope a lot of you will participate. Can two blue-eyed parents have a brown-eyed child? Please put your answer in the chat. If I could play Jeopardy music, I would, but can two blue-eyed parents have a brown-eyed child? Okay.
Maybe.
All right. It's interesting. When I was in high school, when my friend who's my age was in medical school, we were taught that they could not. But in actual fact, two blue-eyed parents can easily have a brown-eyed child. Just the way a light bulb can be on in a lamp, but it will be off if the light bulb is burnt out, or if the lamp is turned off, or if the fuse is blown, or if his tree has brought the wires down and there's no electricity to the house. Color in eyes comes from more than one gene, and they interact. And so being blue-eyed requires more than one gene. And so depending on what those parents give their child, they could easily have a brown-eyed child. Question number 2, do humans and chimps share more than 98% of their DNA? I think that's an easy one. Okay. All right, good. Everybody knows that we share, it's actually 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees. So when we're talking about patterns, keep in mind that patterns can be found in lots of places. There's that 1.2% that we don't share still leaves about 35 million DNA differences. So that's a lot of stuff to study. And question number 3, can you identify a Cohen by his DNA pattern? Let's see. Can you identify a Cohen by his DNA? Can I give you a little cheek swab and know that you're a Cohen? Okay. Wow. Terrific. You all fell for the popular science that's not true. No, you cannot identify a Cohen by his DNA pattern. For lots of reasons. First of all, there's women involved. The Cohen's mother makes a difference. And for another reason, that's not what the science says. That has to do with what I said about facts and theories in the beginning. So the science of genetics is changing really, really fast. And it's important to understand some of the science to understand the discoveries. There are 2 parts to DNA research. There's the biology and there's the math. In my first draft of this talk, I was going to say that the biology is done, that we we understand the order of the nucleotides that make up DNA. But it turns out it's not really correct to say that the biology is done. We know the arrangement of all those nucleotide pairs that make up the 23 chromosomes, but we're still learning to estimate and evaluate and compare them. There are two ways that researchers are currently using to evaluate Y DNA. And right now, I'm not talking about the rest of your chromosomes. I'm only talking about Y chromosomes that only men have. They use two kinds of mutations. One's called STRs, the other's called SNPs. STR stands for short tandem repeats, and SNPs, I love that I know these words. SNPs or SNPs are single nucleotide polymorphisms. They're both mutations, but they're different kinds of mutations. And in the process of preparing this talk, I really worked to find the difference between them, but it's lost in the organic chemistry. It's more than I understand. So let me see if I can show. So I have here, a handful of wooden blocks. And you can see they're all wooden blocks, but I could describe them by color, or I could describe them by shape. And I would still be describing the same blocks, just in different ways. And I think STR mutations and SNP mutations are like that. They're both mutations, but they're just different. The math is even fuzzier because the math depends on assumptions. It depends on probabilities. Everybody that answered yes to some of the questions knows that is probably old enough to remember the book, How to Lie with Statistics. So how you look at the numbers, the different data you have on different populations, the better your statistics will be. But we don't have everybody in the database yet. We're still collecting more information about some populations than other populations. So that was your science lesson for today. A little bit of history. In 1866, just less than 100, well, a little more than 150 years now, Gregor Mendel published his paper about inheritance of traits in pea plants. In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick announced that they had discovered the double helix structure of DNA. And in 1997, Doctors Michael Hammer and Karl Skorecki published the first study of Cohen DNA using STR, the short tandem repeat measurements on the Y DNA. In that first study, 188 Jewish men were asked to do cheek swabs and send in some cheek cells. There were participants from Israel, England, and North America. By the way, notice the bias there already. Ashkenazic.
What? Point a video through this.
They were asked to identify whether they were a Cohen, a Levi, or an Israelite, and to identify their family background. The results of the Y chromosome markers of the analysis of the Cohenim compared to the non-Cohenim were very significant. One of the 12 STRs that they were looking at was detected in 98.5% of the Cohenim and in a significantly lower percentage of non-Cohenim. Other researchers became interested, and a couple of years later, a group at the Center for Genetic Anthropology at University College in London, also including Dr. Skorecki, Dr. Neil Bradman, and Dr. David Goldstein, made a wider study. This time they looked at more participants, including the Sephardic community, and they looked at more markers on the Y chromosome. They still found similar STR mutations on 3 sites. This time they found that 45% of the Kohanim and 56% of the Sephardim Kohanim have the Cohen modal haplotype. Well, in the Jewish population as a whole, the frequency is only 3 to 5%. But please note, not every Cohen had that haplotype, and not every man with that haplotype was a Cohen. So the popular press, and we're big readers, so editors like to cater to us. They've made this a wonderful story that this pattern of STR mutations shows the existence, that the Bible's true. But it's more complicated than that. And this is just one pattern using one measurement out of those 35 million sites that we could be testing. So here's where I'm going to diverge from what Myrna really wanted me to talk about, because I'm going to bring in the Levites. So is that it? Is our history and our destiny written in our DNA? The Bible describes it. Science supports it. As the Peggy Lee song goes, is that all there is to life? But oh no, just like Peggy Lee kept singing, then let's keep dancing. A simple reading of the Genesis story is that we're all the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All of our men, excepting converts, should have this patrilineal lineage showing in their Y DNA. But the descendants of Levi became the tribe of Levi, became the Levites. The Levites also have a strong oral tradition handed down from father to son, generation to generation. If we're trying to prove the Bible, then we need to compare both, we need to test both groups. The same researchers who found the Cohen modal haplotype followed up with studies on Levites in their test groups. This time, instead of a marker on the Y chromosome, instead of one pattern, they're finding a mixed multitude of haplogroups. Instead of finding one homogeneous group, they're finding an incredible variety of groups. Richard Elliott Friedman of Who Wrote the Bible fame uses this to explain that the Levites were actually the mixed multitude that left Egypt with the Israelites. I can think of a lot of other possibilities, including problems with the science, but it shows how new population genetics is. We still don't know the answers. I don't know. I hope everybody that's still got school ahead of them will consider population genetics as a field of study. The current research has moved to using SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphisms, as the more accurate way to test genetic genealogy. So this STR research has kind of been pushed into the background. Geneticists can trace more direct lineages, more specific patterns, and they're working to create a tree back to the original Adam. They found a diversity of lineages among Kohanim, but you could have that STR pattern and still have different lineages in your SNPs, because the SNPs are just tracing the mutations a different way. They hope to bring all these together. The newest research is being done by the Avatanu Dna project. It's making a special effort to find and study Sephardic and Mizrahi groups that have been neglected in other research, because these groups that have this same Jewish history that we do, our DNA should compare. I heard Adam Brown, the leader of this project, speak, and what he says is they'd like to do the whole world, but they can't, so they're just studying the Jews. And if we can figure it out on the Jews, we can figure it out for everybody. They're finding DNA evidence that traces back to the time of the Inquisition, back to Greeks and Romans. They know about a few converts from Greek and Roman times. And they're even tracing some lineages back to the Neolithic expansion, which would be before Abraham left Ur. They've identified over 600 different haplogroups in Jewish men who are identifiably Jewish. So these are the cold, hard facts. As I promised in the beginning, they're not so cold, they're not so hard, and maybe we should call them warm, fuzzy theories instead. We know some things, there's still more that we don't know. So I would encourage you all to spit into that test tube, send your saliva in to be tested, and who knows what we'll learn. I do have to put in a plug for my favorite DNA company because only Family Tree DNA is testing Y chromosomes at this time. So thank you very much. Let me know if you have questions.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. I told you I could do this
Science,
for hours.
math, archaeology, everything. Thank you, Peggy.
Really well done. And I think what we'll do is if folks want to stay on and ask Peggy or Myrna questions and talk more about either of these topics, we'll do that during Kiddush. So for now, we'll put the Torah away and we will have Harvey lead us in Musaf and begin to wrap up our service. I got so comfy and cozy. It was cold. So I'm like, now I got to get up again. Okay. Sing Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim hi lamachzikim pa v'tomcha meushar dirachecha darhei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Eilecha v'nashuva Hadish Yameinu
So after the Chatzi Kaddish, we'll immediately join together in the Musaf through the Kedusha, thereafter silently. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei rabba v'yamad yivrachiru v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yamechon uv'chayirecho be'Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman karev v'yimeru amen. Shnei rabbo mevorach Olam yom maya yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'avitoma v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalal shemei d'kodesha b'richu v'yela v'yinkal bechata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yoma v'yimeru amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah El Hagadol HaGibor Nora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'gonei Hakol V'zecheh Chasdei Avo V'imahot ויגואל לפני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר פוקד המושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. הגיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב והושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ורחמים רבים. תהומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדם מלך ממית, ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנתו לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נעריצך ונקדישך, יסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב. על נביאך וקרא זלזל ויאמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, ולא כל הארץ כבודו. כבודו מעלה מעלה עולם, חיה מקום כבודו. כבודו מעלה מעלה עולם, ושורתיו שואלים, שואלים זה לזה, חיה מקום כבודו. ושורתיו שואלים, שואלים זה לזה, חיה מקום כבודו. ויומתן ברוך ימירו.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומו. ויפן ברחמים, ויחון עם יחדים שמו. ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד. פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו מושיענו. הוא ישמיענו ברחמו, שני שני לעיני כל חי, ויולכם לאלוהים לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, מלך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גדלך, ולנצח נצחי קדושך נקדיש, ושכחך אלוהינו מפינו אלוהים מושבם בועד, כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני. האל הקדוש. Page 203, Kaddish Shalem. Yikadal v'yikadashim Rabbo v'yomod yivrochu tevim v'machutei v'chai chodem echon v'chai lechod be'yisrael b'agolo v'zman kariv v'imru amein yesh me Rabbo mevarach v'lamo me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yituma v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitala v'yitala shmei l'kodesha Eila min kol berachata v'shirata tishbachata v'nechemata dam ron yomav v'imru amein תתקבל תבואתון דברות לכל ישראל, קודם אבהם דבשמי ואמרו אמן. יש לומר רבה מן שמיא וחיים, עולן דבר כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. עולן דבר כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל תבל, ואמרו אמן. אין כאלוהינו, אין כאדוננו, אין כמלכנו, אין כמושיענו, מי כאלוהינו, מי כאדוננו, מי כמלכנו, מי כמושיענו. נודה לאלוהינו, נודה לאדוננו, נודה למלכנו, נודה למושיענו. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shekatiru, Avahotenu, Please rise for the Aleinu on page 205. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tet gedula liyotzeh bereshit shelo hasan kegoyei aratzot v'lo hasamanu k'mishpachar adama shelo samcha kenu kahem וגהרולנו ככל המנון, אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים. לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. b'toratecha, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, v'ne'emar v'hoya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'oretz, v'yom ahu yiyeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Rabbi, I'll turn it back to you.
Shikoach. Thank you, Harvey. Turn to Mourner's Kaddish. And the Shabbos, we are remembering those who have died recently. Today is the Shloshim of Devorah Moran, the mother of Naomi Beinenfeld. And yesterday, Mary Ginsburg, the mother of Jonathan Ginsburg, passed away at age 101. So we are remembering her as well. Was never sick, just died of old age. We are remembering the yahrzeits of Warner Blumenthal, Joseph Einhorn, Reba Green, Norman Howard, Stanley Bernard Kahn, Solomon Kassar, Martin Critchman, Sylvia Lewis, Celie Schneier Lewis, Salomayo Lipka, Carola Meller, Jacob Moss, Ann Norris, Bert Shear, Scheinberg family, David Simon, Henry Stambler, Adele Crest-Taubman, and Lillian Turoff. Any other names that you're remembering for Yartzeit or for St. Kaddish? Feel free to share them with us in the chat. And join me in Kaddish, page 207. Yitgadal,
Dibra Chute, Yemet Malchute, Israel, Isma, Amri, Vimu, Amen. Yehi, Olam, Emaya, Yikara, Yishkaba, Yitse, May Kurusha, Rechu.
Hey, Daniel, pulling up on the right.
Amen. Zechronam Livracha. Their memories be Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Yishar Koach again to Harvey, and especially Yishar Koach to Myrna and to Peggy for your incredible wisdom this morning and really expanding the whole conversation with Kohanim for us. Some folks will stick around during the chat a little bit more about DNA, often DNA. So I'm going to turn it over to Gail for announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I also echo Rabbi Lauren. I think more than Gabbai this evening, and for Muna and Peggy really adding a lot to our Torah service and our discussion. It's really my favorite part of the service to hear all those wonderful new ways of just thinking about the Torah portions. I hope all of you have enjoyed the activities that we've done for Purim this past week. There's been a great participation from the synagogue, from the with the kids in the parking lot, to the Megillah reading and the games. If you didn't have an opportunity to see it live, it is available on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and scroll through the parts to catch the highlights if you'd like. Last thing is tonight, there will be a cocktail event at 7:30, a toast to Queen Esther. We have a couple of mixologists from Atlanta who will be making a couple of very special, unique drinks for us. You can go onto the website and get the shopping list if you'd like. You probably have a lot of the things in your house already. and you can make a mocktail if you don't want to do the alcohol. And we just invite you to come at 7:30, and it'll just be a social hour, and you might learn a few tricks on how to make some nice cocktails. And other than that, 4 weeks from today is first Seder, which seems like the spring is just zooming through. And just to let you know that the staff is hard at work to create a number of activities for everyone to participate in, including a number of small in-person things. So just keep your eyes open for that. We'll be rolling that out probably in the next week as sort of our next major holiday. And otherwise, just keep coming back for all of our weekly learning opportunities on our Shabbats. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. We have so many birthdays today, and another birthday, you may have noticed his party hat, is Brandon Buckalter. Happy birthday! So I asked Brandon, you may have heard me typing, I asked Brandon if he would lead us in Kiddush. So I hand it over to you.
Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Al ken barach Adonai et yom ha-Shabbat vayikasheu sabri.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen. Stan, I think you should do the honors of Shehakol in honor of your birthday.
My pleasure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekol niyeh bidvaro.
I'm
For everybody, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach. Yeah, because I think Eduardo, who read Torah when Rena took the Aliyah, had his birthday just a couple of weeks ago, so we missed his birthday.
Yeah, this was his bar mitzvah anniversary, I think. Wonderful.
No, I think his was actually Shabbat Zachor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I remember.
right, but it was all covered. It was the men's club Shabbat, actually.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So he read for Mom.
Wonderful indeed. Happy birthday again to you.
And
let's just have simchas. That's what I say.
Only simchas.
Yeah.
Get my birthday.
Hey, Sue Becker, you've got your hand raised. Did you want to say something?
No. Go ahead. Sorry.
Please say
How do
something.
I put it down? Oh, I see. I must have hit it. Sorry.
Say something, please.
Speech.
I miss you, Harvey.
We all miss Harvey.
So Dan and Karen, are you home? Or are you still in Colorado?
We're here. We're here for now.
Briefly.
When are you going back?
We're here in Roswell.
We'll spend the first night of Passover in Rocky Mountain National Park with our kids, God willing.
Okay.
That's so funny.
That's up in the wilderness. I love it.
Yeah, Estes Park.
Love it.
Yeah. Diane, did you do anything special for your birthday?
Me?
Diane. Or did she just drop off? Oh, no, she's still there.
Hold on. I'm asking you to unmute.
Yes, we're going hiking in the Sonoran Desert, which is, I'm in Arizona right now with my husband, and he has a congregation here. And so we're taking Monday and Tuesday to go hiking.
Very nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
For me.
Yeah.
And you're not wearing a birthday hat. You should have a birthday hat.
Dan has his pizza hat.
No, it's a birthday hat. It's a birthday hat.
Looks like a birthday hat.
Oh, yeah.
But you can always put candles in a pizza pie, so you know it's not bad.
No, it can't be.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So the other day, Ronette knows this, but I'm sharing for other people's purposes. It was so nice on Wednesday. So I was sitting out in the courtyard eating lunch. It was so sunny, like 70 degrees. And all of a sudden this van pulls up. I was like, who is here? Like nobody was planning on coming. And two people got out of like total strangers got out of the car. And they were like, are you the rabbi? And I said, yes. And they're from Epstein. And it was Epstein delivering Mishloach Manot. And so I, got up and chatted, and I guess Jason, who was the only other person in the building, was watching on the camera, and he just looked at it. 1 second I was there and 1 second I was gone, and this mystery van had pulled up. She's like, Laura just got abducted. What just happened? So I did not get abducted by Epstein administration, but it was a very nice moment.
Sounds like I asked them to abduct you, but they didn't take you, I guess.
It would have been an adventure.
Well, Rabbi, I liked your costume on Purim, but I was sure you were going to show up as a debutante. I was really disappointed.
I need to get my gloves.
Yeah, the gloves.
The gloves make yeah. No, I think I finally got rid of my debutante dress. So I was like, I can't really hold on to this. There's I think we donated it, so it could be someone's future wedding dress, I hope.
I'm glad you're enjoying the film about the rabbi in Chicago. I found it just fascinating when I screened it. It actually came through last year, and we didn't care for it so much. It needed a lot of editing, so we sent it back and asked them to edit it. And they resubmitted it this year, and it made the cut. And it was much better this year than it was last. So I'm glad you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think people have 3 minutes to watch it if you haven't seen it. So I don't think it's. I think if you missed it, you'll have to find it another way. But But the film's called They Ain't Ready for Me, about Tamar Manasseh, who's a real powerhouse in the Chicago Jewish community. But really, really great.
Yeah.
It was a good movie, but I just felt there wasn't enough emphasis on her role in the Jewish community. It was sort of like little snippets. Am I wrong? I would have liked to have seen more of that part.
No, so I read an article that was an interview with her right after the film came out. And it was interesting because she said she had been approached before this by a number of different prospective filmmakers who really wanted to make films about her because she's so prominent, all about, like sort of very singly focused on her as a Jewish woman of color and make that the whole theme of the film. And she rejected it. She said, that's not what I want my story to be from that dimension. I want that to be, that's a part of my story, but I want the work of Mask to be at the forefront. And it was only because this filmmaker, wanted to do that sort of more holistic thing that she even agreed to let him do the project. So it's very, very interesting.
And for those who haven't seen it, you can still go on to AJFF and watch the Q&A. You may not be able to see the movie, but you can watch the Q&A. And also this Sunday is the Q&A for Atlanta, the city too busy to wait. It's not a Q&A, it's a lunch and learn, lunch discussion. all about and Rabbi Lauren is in that movie quite a bit. So,
which is quite an honor since they looked at hundreds of videos and they only picked a few, and Rabbi Lauren was in several times. So that was pretty neat. And they showed our photos in the pew. They thought that was a really neat idea. That's a fairly good movie too.
Hirsch is wonderful. He's great.
So, Jerry, I always wanted to be Jerry Blumenthal. So for Purim, I put on a doctor's smock. I had my stethoscope, and I had a tie on. I want you to know it was wonderful. I enjoyed being Jerry. It's
the stethoscope and tie are just symbols to elevate ourselves. The tie is the essence. That's.
I was amazed.
That's the essence.
Tie a tie after all these years.
By the way, the last time I wore a tie was 2017, so it was done in your honor.
Right. Well, apropos our discussion today.
Of clothes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought about everybody putting on a kippah and a talis. Not everybody. I don't. But it's interesting. It makes a difference. And in one of the brachas, we pray that the bride, that we can dress the bride.
Thank
That
you.
it's very important.
Peggy and Myrna, I really enjoyed the discussion. And Peggy, you reminded me of that. There's an old joke, which I won't even bother to try to tell, about the guy who wants to become a Cohen, and you have to be born one and so on. And kind of found a way because he wanted to make a donation somewhere so he could become
some friends from Israel joining us.
Yes.
There's that guy in
Hey, happy birthday, Stan.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Happy birthday,
Thank
Thank you, Mario.
It's still
Happy
pouring.
birthday.
I still have special scotch to celebrate my birthday.
We have a special scotch tonight.
I have a Japanese one celebrating your birthday.
Okay.
So is it still pouring there?
It's still Purim. We have in Jerusalem has a 3-day Purim this year.
3-day Purim. Yeah.
Amazing.
You go through a lot of scotch in 3 days.
No, today was a first for us because there was a second sefer that we read today, and
The bar mitzvah kid repeated his haftorah from last week to this week because it's a second Purim here starting now. So it's very cute.
it was our first experience of a Purim on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Right.
We were in Israel once for Purim. It was a hoot.
It was absolutely the most
It was great.
fun ever. Everybody's walking around giving shalak manos. I said it's like Halloween in reverse.
Yeah, it was
Instead
great.
of asking for candy, you're getting candy.
Yes.
I was
We go tomorrow actually to give the mishloach manot from the shul to different places.
I was on a kibbutz for Purim, I don't know, 40-something years ago, and it was a lot of fun. And I got one of the really great jobs. Instead of working in the fields for a week, I got to help be on the decoration committee for the dining hall. That was fun. I remember that for Purim. That was great.
So, Rabbi Mario, have you gotten your position yet as the commentator for one of the soccer teams?
No, not yet, but I'm still applying. Yeah. The problem is that I became a fan of Apoel Katamon here. First because they're a very progressive kind of team into Duk-Yum of like bringing communities together, Arabs and Jews, and most importantly because they have the same jersey as Atlanta United, so I didn't have to buy a new one. But now they changed the name back from Apoel Katamon to Apoel Jerusalem. God willing, we're about to, for the first time ever, to go to the main league from the second league. So it's I will keep you posted on that.
Do they have a merchandise store?
It's a very like a papa and mom shop. Like you go to the stadium, the stadium in which they play steady, that they have 30,000 seats. Usually on a good day they have like 75 people who show up for the game. So at halftime you go there, there's and have a little table with some merchandise, and you can buy your Turkish coffee and you have to make it yourself. Very, very like low key kind of thing. Different from when you go to see Apollo Jerusalem play basketball, that is a full stadium, and at halftime in the main floor there is a Marib, and everybody goes. You have hundreds of people praying Marib, and then you go back for second half. Yes.
Everything starts at Yankee Stadium.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure Shea Stadium, same thing.
The only difference is that here they don't have to ask, for a minion, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Here they know.
Here in Miami Beach, you can get filter fish at the Walmart. I mean, at the Walgreens.
Yeah. Okay.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Jonas. Good to see you. Actually, this year will be interesting for us here for Pesach, because I'm sure you heard about the terrible accident, or we don't know exactly what, about the contamination of the beach.
Yeah.
The entire beach from the entire country is filled with tar. And
tar is coming up on the beach.
They have banned all fish from the Mediterranean until new notice. So we may not have gefilte fish this Pesach.
Yay. The interesting thing, we went to clean, to help clean the beach, and you cannot see anything from, when you get to the Mediterranean, you cannot see anything like that. You don't see the tar. But when you sit there and start sifting, you just have to clean like the dermis, not like the epidermis, but the dermis of the beach, of the sand. And we collected a lot of stuff. So
we went like a week after the whole thing started, and the amount of stuff that was still there was like just makes
bad. Talking about years, they don't know where it came from either.
No, there are like 5 ships that are like they suspect, but they don't know exactly. And for some reason, they don't want to tell much about which ones.
It strikes me that not having gefilte fish is not the worst thing in the world, by the way.
And Aliyah is happy. Yeah.
I'm trying lots of wonderful new recipes, so gefilte fish is not personally one of my favorite things.
She keeps insisting that you can put horseradish on anything, so it's like all good.
And the frame from Spain will stay on the plane.
So Stan, what are you doing for your birthday?
Oh, well, later tonight, Judy already made an ice cream cake for her birthday. And we're going to go down to the kids' house and going to have dinner out on their back porch and celebrate my birthday with the family.
And then you'll stop by my house with the cake, of course. Is that correct?
I couldn't buy anything that's left.
There should be a lot left over. The kids asked for 3 different flavors of ice cream. So it was Moose Tracks, mint chocolate chip, and
cookie dough.
So put layers of all that with stuff in between.
And I hear there's going to be whipped cream too. So
yeah.
Send us a picture,
if I'm alive tomorrow morning, Rabbi, is there still room?
Last I checked, only maybe 4 people had signed up, so I think there's still room.
Okay, then if I'm still alive, I'll come up.
Bring your leftovers.
If all that ice cream and whipped cream doesn't,
Like in any of your great cakes, send us a picture.
I already have the picture planned. I just have to get my son-in-law to take it.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Hannah.
Thanks, Peggy.
This past week, Hannah, you show up in my Facebook like nonstop.
I heard a new
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Probably because of Purim, right? All the different Purim.
I mean, growing up, all the Purims with Hannah. It was so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Back when she used to dress up and she was a princess, but she dressed up as a princess yesterday.
Most of the people in our grade, we all did like princesses and stuff for Purim this year for school. So.
Shabbat shalom. Happy birthday, Stan.
Shabbat shalom. Happy birthday.
Shabbat shalom. We'll be back in town next week. Ready to
I
go.
know. I was
strong.
loving your view this morning. Earlier on, earlier on, like around 9:45, 9:50, you could see so nicely. You could see the blue. I mean, look at the blue.
There you go.
We are.
I want to go back to the beach. It looks so nice, Jerry.
That's the real thing.
I think you need to take a picture of that so you can make it as your virtual background.
Yeah.
And we don't have a grandchild in town. We have no idea how to do a virtual background.
That's why we had to come down here so it'd be real.
When you get home.
Take a
Yeah, she's like, pay attention to me.
So Robert, Mario, and Annalie, it's so good to see you.
Thanks
You
for
know,
Good to see you. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining in. It is great to see you guys.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, the truth of the matter is that 11:45 for you, we were joining the Kiddush one that, the Zoom
Oh,
Kiddush
yeah.
one, and we were waiting there. So Mario took the iPad and I said,
Actually, I think we only use that for when we have a bar bat mitzvah.
Yeah, I should ask Denise to take it down unless we have a b'nai mitzvah because it's missing.
Yeah.
It's confusing, yes.
Yeah.
If you have Denise's email, send her a text or something. It's her birthday today.
Whose
But we just spoke to her. She was in the hair salon. So take your time and like in an hour, you can send her.
Yeah, it's also like Ellen Banoff's, I think, or.
That was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Ellen Banoff, and tomorrow, Ronnie Genser.
Yeah. I think Ronnie should celebrate 2 days.
Yeah, she gets a half birthday tomorrow, right?
Well, actually, last year,
Every 4 years, yes.
In 2020, she celebrated on the 29th of February. So
Right.
Yes.
Really young.
Yeah.
All right, stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Love everyone.
Bye.
All right, let's go back to show. Okay.
You can go tomorrow
Good
morning,
Shabbos.
Mary. You can go tomorrow morning.
If I drive all night,
Yeah, you can get there tomorrow morning. They're doing a
Right.
minion there, live minions. Oh.
I mean, we're all vaccinated, I presume.
Not
so-
yet, not yet.
Okay.
Soon.
Almost her.
Okay.
March
Good.
8th, they finally
March
opened
8th.
the vaccine
March
for
8th.
educators
Yeah,
in Georgia.
Not only are we vaccinated, but we made it through all the side effects too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, everybody stay well.
I actually signed up for the March 8th under the educator one too.
How did you get one already, Robin?
No, I signed up on the My Vaccine line from the website, from the Georgia Department website. So on March 8th, I'll get whatever information they wind up sending out to educators. But
I don't know. The school's already got something lined up. I just don't know what date.
Right.
Maybe
Miss
that
Ames told
week
me-
actually
Miss
for,
Ames
at
told-
Epstein.
I asked Miss Ames, she said after March 8th.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of teachers drive to Alabama already. I think I would say like half of the middle school and the early childhood, the teachers have already driven, gotten their first vaccine. I was almost going to do that. And then I was like, you know what? Then you have to drive back a second time. And what's the big deal to wait till the week of March 8th if the school promised us that they're going to get something in-house for us. So
But we have to see if Dad can get one
By
through
the
the
way, I have a question. Who is media account?
Media is the main, it may be.
It's Heather.
It's maybe Heather, it may be Heather today.
Oh,
Usually
okay.
it's Heather.
I saw it all morning long, and I was wondering who it was. So
Media, it's the main account.
okay.
Heather, and I'm doing the Zoom at Or Hadash.
Yeah, I saw you're doing that today. Good.
Yeah. And just remember to log out of that so the next person can log in and doesn't have a problem. I forgot at one point for Purim to log out because I did it on Purim. And so then I did a Zoom for something else on Friday afternoon, and I logged in at Zoom at Or Hadash. So make sure you sign out to go back to your main account.
Bye, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Enjoy your birthday, Stan.
Thank you.
Bye.
Admit this stream. Kiss stream.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye,
Have
everybody.
fun. Enjoy the cake. Save some for me.
No, it's got cookie crumbs in it, Ann. Graham crackers and cookies. So.
Listen, I don't do dairy either, but sometimes for a birthday, I'll make an exception.
Have a good week and happy birthday.
Yeah.
I think I sent you happy birthday,
Okay,
but
but-
happy birthday.
Yeah.
Everything. We Zoomed with our family in London. It was a lot of fun. And Bob brought out the birthday cake. So it was fun.
I happen to know, Gail Dooner said that Passover was, first Seder was 4 weeks
but I
from
think that's-
today. Is it Saturday night or Friday
No, it's
night
Friday
for
night.
first Seder?
Gotta be Friday.
Because it can't be Saturday night for first Seder, can it?
Not usually. Let me look. I'll tell you in a sec.
It's Saturday night?
Yeah, because
He's looking at he's looking at the calendar and it's Saturday night. So I have to change my email to
Yeah.
everybody. It can't be Friday night. It's got to be Saturday night or Sunday night. Stan just looked it up and
Yeah.
he said it's Saturday night.
Yep, Saturday night.
He just assumed, you know, it's like usually you can't cook on Shabbat,
Yeah.
whatever. So
You cook everything on Friday for Saturday night and then on Sunday for Sunday night, but you do all your shopping
Oven, yeah.
before.
or you have everything cold, right?
We better start. Well, I know Costco has some Passover stuff already. We better start now because God only knows what they're gonna be able to ship and provide.
Right.
Yeah.
Kroger's shelves are empty where they're going to put the Passover stuff. Well, have a good week.
Yeah.
So glad I'm vaccinated so I can go into a store now because doing it online last year was horrible.
Yep.
Okay, everybody.
And see you later. Okay. Bye.
I'm gonna close it out.